Okay, well, welcome, Amanda. This is fun to do an update video for the ADR is First Career video blog. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell folks what you're doing now and where you're at.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. This is great to think back to what I was doing. Gosh, it's 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. So currently, I am the co-founder and family mediator with West Coast Family Mediation Center. And so when I recorded this video, however many years ago that was, so I was a co-owner at that time of San Diego Family Mediation Center. And then a few years after that, we actually opened another office location in Orange County and kind of opened another business that was California Family Mediation Center. And then earlier this year, we really wanted to bring everything together to have more of a clear brand and, consistency across what things were. And so we put everything under the name of West Coast Family Mediation Center. So we still do all family mediation, except for now, really, we're all throughout California. So when we started, we were just in San Diego. We were just seeing people in, small office. As I was thinking back, looking at the video from that time, that was I think that was actually the second office that my partner and I shared, but it was probably like 12 by 12. We had one round table in it. We would do work in there and see clients and just kind of switch off where we were. And so now we have a much bigger office space, although I kind of wish it was smaller with how much we've used it in the last year. But now we've got office space, we've got 2 mediation rooms, office, waiting area, and we've got a pretty big size conference room. And we've grown. So it's still my partner and I that I originally started with, but we have 4 mediators, including her and I now. And then we've got 2 other full-time employees, and then we've got a marketing manager who she's almost full-time, but she's got her own marketing business, so she's also with us. So there's 7 of us total, which is kind of crazy to think about from where we started, and we're growing, and we really are working with clients all throughout California. I mean, COVID kind of did that in that it enabled us to realize we didn't have to have physical offices and locations in all these places. And yet our clients are coming from throughout the state. So we are expanding and trying to be in more areas and growing the number of mediations we're doing. It's all family mediation still. Most of it is divorce, but we also do other family related cases. A lot of the ones I've been doing more recently have been more premarital mediation, and that's been a lot of fun and interesting to get into that area too.
That is so interesting. So you've expanded not only in size, but a little bit in scope. Had you been doing these premarital mediations before?
We always had a little bit of it. I think that for us, there are some people who they do divorce mediation and that's all they do. Even though they may say I do family mediation, they really just do the divorce side. We always looked at it as there's just so much under the family umbrella that can be mediated and is all about relationships. And so we've always done that. We've always done some blended families and parenting and all just kind of different things in that vein. But I have found that the premarital mediation and premarital agreements has grown a lot. I'm actually presenting with Chip Rose, who's another family mediator for the APFM conference. We're doing a session on premarital mediation because I think it's an area that mediators don't think about. And there's just a lot of ways to do that. And also to really help people to show that it's not just about the divorce side of it, but how can you actually plan better when you're going into a marriage such that hopefully we don't see you back in our office.
Exactly. The preventative stuff. So when we first talked so many years ago now, the real focus was how did you overcome any challenges in the traditional sort of narrative that you have to be, decades into your practice before you can launch a career in mediation. So if you don't mind sort of retelling that story, just in case people don't see the other video, and then we'll go from there. So how did you overcome any challenges that you had in launching this first career in ADR?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing definitely for me was people's perception of like where you should be coming from if you're a mediator. And it came from all different directions, right? Not just, those who you would think they're kind of, I'm going to say like older, maybe male, maybe kind of more entrenched in family litigation and then kind of moving into mediation. But I saw it in from a lot of different people. And kind of the question of, you're doing what, right? Like you're not going to litigate, you're not going to do that side of it, that like you want to go straight into mediation. And then I think from there, it was definitely a comment of like, well, how young you are and, how are you going to do that? And what is that going to look like? And I mean, there was definitely challenges outside of that, but I think that a lot of times, I think where people get stuck, and I think I talked about this previously too, is that if you're not feeling the encouragement from those around you. And I even had a professor who has since changed his mind, but a professor who I had at Pepperdine when I was doing my master's there, who was like, well, you can't do that. Aren't you going to go litigate first? And I'm like, you're teaching in a mediation dispute resolution field, and you're telling me that like, I can't go that direction first. And so I think that it's been that's I think the biggest stumbling block for people is hearing that and feeling like, well, I can't do it. And so one of the things that I have really tried to do is always talk with anyone who's interested in mediation first. Would be like, I'm always available. What are the ways that I can help and give information and provide resources, because I think people need to know that there's those encouraging them to do it and not just those telling them you can't do that. And I was very persistent in saying like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. I knew what I wanted to do and I made it happen. But I know that not everybody feels that way. And it's not always easy to feel that way when you feel like there's so much kind of pushing back against you. And I think that family law too is an area where it is probably a little bit easier. I think that it's even harder on kind of the civil mediation side, because most of the time we go direct to the consumer, to the client. So when I'm marketing as a business and when I'm doing things, most of it is directly to who's going to be our clients, and they care less. The people that care more are the attorneys, right? And so if you're on the civil litigation side, or civil mediation side, and you're working most of the time with attorneys, a lot of times the attorneys aren't going to hire you if you haven't had a litigation background, if you're not older, if you haven't had that experience. And so I think there is some of that there. It's just the shifting and the changing of the dynamics of understanding, there's a different background that you should have. And I always talk about this, and I think I talked about it in my video before, about the idea that, why should you have to have a litigation training and a background and experience in the courtroom to be a good mediator? They're very different skills. And so I will talk to people and say, well, I didn't have to unlearn all of the stuff that you learned as a attorney representing your clients. I'm always thinking in a neutral, like problem solving mindset. But I think that the challenges are really that not everybody sees it that
way. When I first started the blog, I was talking to everybody who had sort of just launched the career, right? So you just mentioned the 12 by 12 office, right? Like, and everybody was doing so well and it was exciting, and everybody was early in their career. And now I'm talking to folks, now it's been the 5, 6, 7 years, and it's really fun and exciting to hear how well people are doing. I'm just curious if you can talk about that growth. So any challenges that happened in those 6 years, or things that you would, once somebody makes that plunge, like I am going to do it, how you stay resilient given maybe some of the different perceptions that people have.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, which I might talk a little bit about, I think there's kind of two sides of it, because there is the like being in a dispute resolution field and mediation, but as somebody who owns their own business and is more than just a solo, and there's nothing wrong with being a solo practitioner mediator, but as somebody who has the business side of it and employees and what that is, there's challenges on both sides of it. So, I think that on kind of the mediation dispute resolution side of it, I continuously still get people who look at me and say, well, you're how young, or like, how are you doing this? And I think that it's for me, I'm confident that my skills are good, and I do, and I've had many cases and experience and education and stuff. So I kind of let it roll off more, but I still get it. I still get people who will, make those comments and look at it. And, when I started, I was in my 20s, and I'm in my 30s now, which is funny because I have to say, when I was like I was like wanting to turn 30 because I hated telling people I was still in my 20s when I was mediating. I don't know, there was something about that, but still, I often walk into rooms and I'm like one of the youngest person there, and not just by like 5 years, right? We're talking by like 10, 20, 30 years. And so I think it's that's a struggle. And it's also just not seeing the field reflect who you are, right? And I know this is even more of an issue for amongst more diverse fields, is that like if I, go to conferences, or I, now attend things online, and I look around and everybody is, older, but they're also more male, and they're also, a lot of times it's white, and what that looks like, you're not seeing yourself reflected. And so it's a struggle to figure out where do you fit. And I think that that's something that the mediation field in general needs to work on. And I know there's a lot of discussion about that. And I know on the family mediation side, we've been talking about that with APFM. But it's hard sometimes of, do you have those people that you can talk to, not just about a mentor, but about colleagues that are going to understand. And, I think for me, it's been great to establish some friendships and relationships with colleagues that are closer to my age. And we have kind of a business practice group that we'll meet and talk with. But I think that a challenge is that, it can be, in a sense, kind of lonely to be one of someone and not see others that resonate in the same story with you. And then I think that the other part of it is that, like, there's business challenges. Like, they don't teach you in law school how to run a business. It's something that you have to learn. There's a lot of things they don't teach you in law school, but definitely how to run a business. And so I think over the years, even my business partner and I have had our challenges, and how do we work together, and what does that look like, and what is the dynamic in the relationship. And then, I still remember back, like, the first employee we tried to hire, like, did not the best experience, and like finding the right fit, and, really figuring out, who is going to fit within the culture and the brand of our company and want to grow within the mediation field. And I think that's what's great too, is that, so as I said, we've got 4 mediators right now, and we've got one that we're going to be training. And, one of them is actually a professor of mine who Allison knows, and, our old professor of mine. And so, he's older than I am, but has always been in the dispute resolution field as well. But our other 2 mediators, one that we're bringing up and one that's with us, are younger even than I am. And it's great to be able to bring them into the field, and to be able to, provide that for others as well, and show that there is a way to make this a not just like a first career, but your only career, and look at it in a way that is very different than I think a lot of, that we've been told. And so, there's challenges in finding the right employees and finding the right fit. But it's really rewarding to see that as we've grown, I can do that. I can have those who this is also a first career for them.
That's so cool. So now you're not only reflecting on your own experience, but you're literally transforming someone else's opportunity to make ADR as a first career. So has your advice changed for folks if they're interested in pursuing ADR as a first career, given these new perspectives that you've got?
I think a lot of it's probably the same. And, I can't say exactly what I said back, know what I said back then, but I think that a lot of it's the same, in the sense that a lot of it is about being persistent, is about, realizing that people are going to say what they say, and you have to not let it, because if you let it bother you, you're never going to get into the field in the first place. And I think it's also tracking down those that are in the field already. And, I think what I've found with mediation in general is that most people are always welcome to speak, to talk to you, and to, you know, whether they're in the academic side, or whether they're, you know, on the business side, or they're in nonprofits, like, you know, reaching out. I often get emails or contacts from, you know, people who are, you know, whether it's that they're interested in mediation, or, you know, what it is. And sometimes they're looking for jobs and we don't always have stuff, but we are, you know, I'm always like, I will always schedule a call with anybody who's interested in mediation, because I think it's important to provide that back to others. So I would say, you know, I think it's definitely sometimes about reaching out and, you know, being willing to kind of put yourself out there. I also think, especially with the way the virtual world is right now, being able to connect with people all over the country, but also on the education side of whether it's conferences or more trainings, that there are opportunities that I don't think existed before because the cost is lower, right? So I sit on the board for the Academy of Professional Family Mediators, and, you know, the cost for our conference in person, it was not attainable for a lot of beginning mediators. I completely understand that. And so when we're online, it really has allowed people who might not have been able to afford it before to attend. And so I think if you can, you know, search out some of those opportunities that may not have existed before, it can really, you know, provide you with a wider, you know, wider array of what's out there, and, you know, doing it. But I think, like, really the ultimate thing is just being persistent and, you know, continuing on with it, and, you know, finding the resources and the help that you need, but being willing to do it.
Yeah, that persistent resilience, just, you know, like, this is what confidence, not letting people get to you. It was interesting to hear you say that you still get people who might question because of your age, even though now you've been doing it, right? Like, I've proven myself. Do you think the narrative is changing at all for ADR careers? Or do you think it's still that older white male, multiple years, retired judge?
Yeah, I think it's like very slowly changing, unfortunately. And I think that because, I mean, you know, if 5 to 7 years from when you started this blog and started these videos, I wish we were farther along. I feel like, you know, when I go to conferences or I go to, you know, do things and it's still not what it should be, I think that that's where it's just, to me, it seems like it's really slow. So I do think it is changing. I think that there are a lot of people that are trying to change that too. You know, I think that I think there's a lot being done, but I think that it's not maybe resonating as much on the still first career side of things, because I think there is also that fear still amongst, like, students coming out and saying, like, well, how am I going to make this work? And, you know, okay, well, I'll take that litigation job for a few years, right? I'll pay off my student loans, and I don't blame them. Like, I know it's not easy to get into, and I think it's also, you know, and I was talking about, you know, being able to bring newer mediators into the field. And, you know, Michael Oritz, another one who's doing that as well, in the sense that, like, there isn't, if you're coming straight out of school, it's not the easiest to say, well, I'll go work for a mediation firm. Right? It's not like, so I think that if we can grow that to be able to provide more opportunities, then it will go from there, because it's hard to be a solo, right? It's hard to be a solo at any time, but especially right out of law school, to feel like, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, become a mediator. And so I think that it's kind of that part of it that ends up pushing people back kind of down the regular path, instead of trying to branch out and to do it. But if they could go into a mediation firm, like they could go into a law firm, they might be more open to, you know, giving that a try.
Yeah, if we had more of a pipeline of places that you go and you continue to learn and you grow, and then all of a sudden you move up, and that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, is there anything that you would like to just share with folks about your experience or general advice before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, I love what I do, so that's really great. Is loving the mediation side of it, and also I have found that I like having my own business. I like running that side of it, and as we've hired more people, I found that my role has transitioned to where I am mediating a little bit less because I do have other
Mhm.
business tasks and things that are involved with that. But I think that is all part of kind of the growth and what that looks like. But I think that the biggest thing is like if you do really enjoy mediation, knowing that it's an option to go somewhere with. And I always encourage people like reach out to someone if you are interested. And like it can be a cold email. I mean, there's so much out there. I mean, that's how, and I know I talked about this in my video, but like that was how I met my partner, right? Was like sending out a cold email to be like, hey, can I come intern for you? Like, it may not always work out, but you're never going to know and you're never going to have the opportunities unless you give it a try. And I think that that's just, for people to remember that and to remember now, like in a virtual world, it doesn't matter where that is too, right? You
Yeah.
can reach out to somebody, across the country and you could still gain experience and start to build your career.
Yeah, the so many more opportunities before us because we don't have those limitations.
Mhm.
And hopefully as things grow, more individuals like yourself starting these businesses and growing them, and then there's more opportunities for others behind you.
Mhm.
And and our field still has to deal with the fact that I think another paper came out this year that said individuals still don't really know what mediation is. Like, so we have a real
Mm.
marketing issue in general, let alone then the resulting jobs that would be available from that.
Yeah.
But that's maybe a topic for another day. Uh,
Yes, it's a good topic. I'd love to talk about that, but we could talk about that for a long time. So
well, I am so loving these updates, and just a huge congratulations on all of your success. And
thank
thank
you.
you for sharing that success with not only the people watching maybe these videos, but these individuals that are now joining you in your business. It's really very cool, Amanda. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And it was fun to do this as well and catch up.